First of all, tennis needs Carlos. I do believe he's gonna come back.
There are two versions of the Carlos Alcaraz comeback story. There is the fairy tale the internet chose to believe, and then there is the terrifying reality Boris Becker saw. Because when Boris Becker looked shocked by that one Instagram video Alcaraz posted, he knew it didn't just decide the kid's US Open future. It may have just filmed the tragic end of his entire career. Look at the facts. It's been 3 months of agonizing, total silence. No matches, no updates. Just a brutal wrist injury suffered back in April at his home tournament in Barcelona, an injury that swallowed his clay season, Roland Garros, and Wimbledon completely whole. Then, out of nowhere, Alcaraz resurfaces. A single video, the caption, "On the right path." Naturally, the tennis world lost its mind. Millions of fans celebrated the return of the king, but if you live for the raw truth underneath the hype, and not the cheap fairy tales on top of it, hit that subscribe button right now, because I'm about to show you exactly what a 6-time Grand Slam champion spotted in that footage that the fans were too relieved to notice. But first, do me a favor and drop a comment below. When you watched Carlos hit those balls, did you see a champion on his way back? Or did you see a generational talent quietly slipping away? Tell me your side, because the experts have already picked theirs, and they are terrified. Here is what nobody wants to say out loud. We have seen this horror movie before. That right wrist, an inflamed tendon sheath, is the exact ghost that haunts modern tennis. Juan Martín del Potro won the US Open, and a wrist injury stole the rest of his career. Dominic Thiem won the US Open, and a wrist injury made sure he was never the same. Now, the youngest man to ever complete the career Grand Slam, the kid who started this season by conquering Novak Djokovic for the Australian Open crown, is playing tennis with an unstrung racket because his wrist can't handle the physical vibration of real string tension. And the timing is absolute poetry. This video dropped the exact week his name vanished from the Canadian Open entry list, erased, which detonates his entire summer. No warm-up tournaments, no test runs. The next time Carlos Alcaraz swings a racket in live combat will be at the US Open, defending his crown on the most punishing hard courts on earth, with a wrist that is literally held together by hope. Body start with the footage itself, because every side of this argument is reading the exact same 15 clips. The post shows Alcaraz inside his own academy in Murcia, hitting tennis balls again for the first time in months. A wrist bandage, in some clips, an unstrung racket frame, no strings, no tension, just the shape of the swing, light ground strokes against a wall, a few gentle serves, some wrist mobility work, even a little foot tennis to move around without loading the arm, 15 images and videos, one caption, "Por el buen camino," on the right path. To a fan, that's a miracle. 3 months of silence, and suddenly the king is swinging again. Of course the comments exploded. Watch it like a professional though, and the details start whispering something darker. An unstrung racket in mid-July means he still can't put full string tension through that wrist. And tension is force, and force is exactly what a healing tendon can't take yet. The hitting is soft, tentative. He's not ripping forehands. He's feeling for the ball, testing whether it hurts. For the reigning US Open champion, weeks out from defending it, that is not the footage you want to see. Boris Becker landed on that exact read, and he didn't sugarcoat it. Watching Alcaraz hit, the 6-time Grand Slam champion said it was nice to see him swinging a little, but that he was still far off. Still far off. From a man who won 6 majors and has watched 1,000 comebacks, that's not encouragement. That's a warning dressed in politeness. He wasn't alone either. Analysts and fans piled in with the same fear, some flatly saying they couldn't see how he plays the US Open at all. Why does one word, far, carry so much weight here? Because of what this exact injury has done to the players who came before him. Rewind to Juan Martín del Potro. In 2009, he beat Roger Federer to win the US Open, wielding one of the most devastating forehands the sport has ever produced. Then his right wrist went. A split tendon, an entire year lost, unable even to defend his title. Surgery after surgery. He clawed back in flashes, even climbed the rankings again, but he was never whole, and it eventually forced him out for good. A US Open champion, undone by the same joint Alcaraz is nursing right now. Then Dominic Thiem. He won the US Open in 2020, finally breaking through for his first major after years of near misses. Months later, a wrist injury at the 2021 Mallorca Open. He lost roughly 10 months, spoke openly about pain that kept coming back, and never rediscovered his old level. He retired 3 years on. Another major champion, another right wrist, another career split cleanly into before and after. That's the ghost hanging over these 15 clips. This injury, in this joint, has a track record of not letting go. Nobody's saying Alcaraz is doomed. He's 23, the medicine has moved on. Every wrist is different. But you can't understand why Becker said "far off" so grimly without seeing the graveyard behind the word. So that's the terrifying reading. The honest counterweight matters just as much. Alcaraz himself captioned it, "On the right path," and that's not nothing. This is the first time he's hit with his right hand at all. Earlier in the recovery, he could only go lefty, and before that, his team ruled out surgery entirely and put it in a cast to heal on its own. The trajectory is upward, even if it's slow. Spanish outlet La Verdad reported this week that he may be days from final clearance to train at full intensity, pending a medical checkup that could greenlight the hard court build. And when that clearance lands, the plan is a mini preseason, a compressed training block to rebuild match fitness before he competes. The optimists aren't dreaming. They're watching a player who's stayed physically fit throughout, and who's gone from a cast to lefty hitting to righty hitting in a matter of months. That's progress, not collapse. The truth sits in the tension between those two reads, and nobody has settled it yet, which is what makes this video so loaded. Look at what's on the line. Canada is already gone. The entry list came out without him, the only player in the ATP's top 72 who's missing. 12 weeks without a competitive match, the longest layoff of his career, and counting. A few analysts have floated the darkest version out loud. No return at all in 2026. That erases his last obvious tune-up. The next target is Cincinnati in mid-August, where he's also defending champion, and if that slips, the next time Carlos Alcaraz plays a competitive match could be the US Open itself, on August 30th. The title he took off Jannik Sinner in last year's final, on hard courts that punish the wrist harder than any surface in tennis. He's already forfeited more than 4,800 ranking points sitting out, which just dropped him to world number 3, passed by Alexander Zverev after the German's run to the Wimbledon final. He's got another 3,000 to defend across Cincinnati and New York. Defend nothing, and the fall gets steeper. That's the real question buried in 15 seconds of Instagram. Not, is Carlos healing? He's healing. The question is whether On the Right Path is fast enough to carry him onto Arthur Ashe in one piece, and whether jumping cold into best-of-5 set tennis, after 4 months away, is a gamble that could wreck the wrist all over again, or whether posting that video was the first quiet admission that the US Open is already slipping away. Outro lay. The two versions side by side, and you see why this one clip split the tennis world in half. Version 1. A champion clawing back, off the cast, off the left hand, hitting righty again, captioning it "On the Right Path" because he believes it, with clearance to train maybe days away. Version 2. A 23-year-old patting balls with an unstrung racket weeks from a Grand Slam, on the exact wrist injury that quietly ended Del Potro and Thiem, and a 6-time major champion looking straight at it and saying, "Still far off." Both readings are real. That's the uncomfortable part. The footage doesn't lie, but it doesn't decide either. It just hands you the last piece of evidence anyone gets before Carlos himself makes the call. And that call is enormous. Canada's already gone. Cincinnati's a coin flip. Arthur Ashe waits on August 30th, with his own title on the line, and a wrist that couldn't take full-string tension in the middle of July. Nobody outside his medical team truly knows which version wins, but everybody with eyes has an opinion now, including you. If you want the honest breakdown instead of the fairy tale, do me a favor and subscribe, because this story is far from over, and the next chapter's coming fast. Then, settle it in the comments. You've seen the same footage Boris Becker saw, so what would you tell Carlos Alcaraz right now? Push for the US Open and defend the crown, whatever the risk? Or shut it down, protect the wrist, and refuse to become the next cautionary tale? There's no safe answer. Tell me yours, and tell me why. I'll be reading every single one.